Monster Energy Supercross 3, the official video game, is quite a name, but it's one that's pretty straight to the point. If you're looking for a Supercross fix, then this is the go-to franchise. After all, it does hold all the official licensing and boasts quite an impressive physics model. With that said, is it worth checking out? Well, I'd say so, but let's talk about why, beginning with the gameplay. Monster Energy Supercross 3's improved physics model gives a great amount of control over your rider. From taking tight corners to flowing through a rhythm section, the game itself is very much so fun to play. But I won't be describing it as realistic because it can certainly be inconsistent from time to time. A good example of this is when you can legitimately land on top of another rider with little to no impact to either player. Another odd issue you'll run into is when you're driving right into a tough block along the side of a course, because at times you can hit it quite hard with little to no repercussion. And yet other times the most gentle tap will be enough to send you flying. Now I do want to point out that these odd little issues didn't really impact my overall enjoyment of the game, but I did think were worth bringing up. Thankfully, there is a rewind feature within the game as well, so you can easily correct any issues at a moment's notice. Sadly, assist for new players to the franchise seems to end with that rewind feature. While there is a tutorial in the game, it's hard to classify it as anything meaningful. It pretty much consists of telling you how to launch at the beginning of a race and then just list the rest of the controls on the side. You're gonna be left to figure out the rest on your own mid-race, and that's pretty much all there is to the tutorial. It really could use much more depth than that, especially with how important it can be to shift your rider's weight around while also controlling your bike. Now, there are challenges you can do to help improve on those skills, but the game really doesn't make it clear that they're even there to begin with, and I really feel like they should have tied them together with the tutorial section of the game to help players come to grips with the overall gameplay. Now, the last thing I want to touch on in this subject is the overall challenge and difficulty, because I think for the most part they managed to deliver here. The computer AI has multiple levels of difficulty for you to choose from, and there is certainly a skill gap between novices and pros. Being able to master control over your character and bike make all the difference in the world, and there's a ton of settings for you to play around with to try and make that experience more tuned to what you enjoy. I know I may have sounded a bit negative when talking about the gameplay itself, but outside of these instances, it's simply quite a lot of fun to play. It's easy to see that time was spent on improving the physics model in this year's entry, and while it could still use some work, I think it's certainly a step in the right direction. And now let's start talking features. Monster Energy Supercross 3 is full of all sorts of content. We're talking multiple single player modes, multiplayer modes, a track editor, challenges, the compound, customization, and more. Put it simply, there's no shortage of things to do here. Now, the main chunk of content is the career mode. Here you'll get to play as your customized character, which by the way can be both male or female for the first time in franchise history, and take them through the ranks, and along the way you'll get to sign deals with some major franchises which will lock you into certain gear and customization. Or if you choose to, you can go the other route and get some money and make all the choices for yourself. You'll be racing on 250 West, 250 East, or the 450 series. Outside of that, you can set up single event races and choose all the details such as the tracks, which there are plenty of, and you can even search up user created tracks and race on those if you desire to try that. Another really neat addition to the game is the compound, where you and up to 3 other friends can ride around in a massive open area to have some fun and hone in on your skills. Now, since I'm reviewing the Google Stadia version of the game, I have to bring up the fact that the lack of player base really hurts some of these online features. While there is a server browser, I never once saw a lobby hosted throughout my time with the game. Not to mention, the custom track editor is a really nice addition, but due to the tracks being limited by the platform they're hosted on, there really aren't too many user-created tracks to choose from here. Hopefully this will change in the future, but right now, if multiplayer is what you're hoping to really dig into, then possibly consider the game elsewhere. Now let's move on to talking about audio and visuals. Graphically, I think the game looks fantastic. Monster Energy Supercross 3 really does a great job with the tracks. Seeing the dirt fly into the air as you race on it is both satisfying and functional, as the game provides you with a good sense of speed in doing so. Seeing the flashlights of the cameras flicker in the crowds is also a very nice touch to the overall atmosphere. The bike and rider customization also looks great. With that said, there is one aspect of this game that really fails in the visual department, and that's the characters' faces. They are pretty rough to say the least. Thankfully, it's not something you'll be seeing much of too often. Now, as for the audio, the game's soundtrack suits the game itself well enough and provides a good variety of genres for those playing. The game audio itself is okay. While the venues and locations sound great, the bikes themselves leave more to be desired. It can be hard to hear them mid-race, and while they do have different audio between bikes, it can be hard to make out the difference at times. I also feel like pointing out that I was a bit disappointed to see that commentators only talk at the very start of an event and not throughout the race. It would really go a long way for immersion factor if they included a bit of commentary throughout. Now, to wrap it all up, I think Monster Energy Supercross 3, the official video game, offers a ton of value for its asking price. Now, it may be just a little bit too similar for those of you who bought into the last entry. With that said, the improvements made here are certainly a step in the right direction. As for the Stadia experience itself, well, it felt perfect. At no point did I run into any issues playing on the web browser, the Chromecast, or my Pixel 4. That said, the current drawback Stadia faces most remains here, and that's a lack of a player base. A lot of the online features really take a hit here, and the game really has some great additions on that front. It's just a shame right now that you'll have to go out of your way to experience those additions and set up matches with others. Features like crossplay would go a super long way for a game like this, and I'm hoping more developers will start to realize that going forward. So, everything taken into account, do I still think this game is worth checking out? To put it simply, yes. I think there's more than enough content here for those of you who are interested in this type of game. The gameplay itself is really fun, and it's a solid step forward for the franchise in general. That said, if you own last year's entry, it may be a bit of a tougher sale, and you may want to hold off for a sale price. Anyways, I give Monster Energy Supercross 3, the official video game, a rating of 7 out of 10. Now, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button, as it really does help the channel out, and if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. Now, if you're still watching this video, I want to ask you for some feedback on what you thought of this review layout and your opinions on how I could improve it. There's going to be plenty more reviews posted in the future, and your feedback is very much so welcome so I can keep improving as I go. As always, thank you for watching. This has been Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related. The Gen S community is over 3,600 strong and growing by the day, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.